few people here this evening, but I hope the people out there will watch what's going on here. Before we get started, I'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would stand, those that are with us here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I used to be a elementary school teacher, believe it or not, Justin, back in the day, and I taught religion for 10 years at the academy. So I'd like to start out a little prayer that I always said with the kids. It's in Latin. It means, Sursum corda. I would come in every day, and the response is, Habemus ad Domino. Now, what it means in Latin is, lift up your hearts. We lift them up to the Lord. So I thought that might get us started tonight with a little prayer. All right. Well, I'm glad, Pat, you and Tracy made it. So you're right here at the right time. So tonight I've got about 4 subjects I'd like to cover a bit. And as I was telling Eric, he's my new cameraman here, Dennis, he's taking his place tonight. Thank you for coming and doing this, Eric. When we have a situation that's coming up, there's 3 or 4 items I'd like to cross. And the first one I got on my list this evening I'd like to talk about is going to be recycling. But before I jump into anything else, this is, by the way, the Reading Second Ward Advisory Committee, Reading Council Advisory Committee. So those who may not know what's going on out there, that's what we're doing. That's the definition of what I have here. Council elected a few months back to cut back on the number of meetings that we would have, and this one became available as a free night. And many years ago, when I was mayor, I used to have the Mayor's Advisory Committee, and Justin might remember that. And so picking up on that same idea, my goal here is if there are individuals who would like to raise something in the community other than what I'm going to be talking about, please feel free to step up to the microphone or ask questions, or I can take the mic out to the audience if you like, and we can do that as well. But if not, at any time during this hour, by the way, I will make sure it stays at an hour. I assure you, nobody wants to put up with that longer than an hour talking to somebody in the political realm, I don't believe. But anyway, if there are no other questions at this time, if there is in the middle of it, to think of something, just raise your hand and tell me, hey, I forgot, Tony, I have something I want to ask you. Well, the first thing is recycling, and I want the people out in the community, especially in my ward, to be aware that we are going to be taking bids, again, for garbage collection. Many years ago, we actually saved about $800,000 when we contracted with the Rumpke disposable company and garbage collection company by going on a 5-year contract and working with them rather than we used to do it all ourselves. We had our own garbage trucks, maintenance, and all the things that will go with that. But since then, of course, we have had to take bids on a periodic basis. So currently, we've got a bid that's coming up probably, it has to happen before the end of the year. The contract's going to end before the end of the year. And included in that, we decided, both the council and the administration, to include recycling. We are one of, I think, 5, Pat, that does not recycle basically through our garbage collection directly for all residents. We do have a voluntary program that we've gotten started, which I'm very pleased that we have that. But we are going to take these bids, and my understanding is the way it's going to go out is we'll have our regular contract for picking up all our garbage. Those are the residents, and then they also, companies and apartment complexes can contract differently if they choose. Is this microphone working all right? Okay, great, because we were in a little trouble earlier. So what I'm getting at is we were going to take the bids, but included in the bids this year, we're going to have recycling quotations for picking up recycling once a week or once every other week. So we don't know what the bids are going to show us. We believe that, at least we like to believe, that there's going to be a great opportunity to get a better price. Right now, as a voluntary person, you can go through the city. You pay us through the water department to have recycling. And we have about 940, is it, or something like that? 940, pardon? 25%. So, well, I think it's really more than that, because I checked, Pat, I'm glad you brought that up. There's 3,120 possible places that we would recycle. So if you got 900 and something, you know you're closer to getting to the third. Of the city already does it voluntarily. And I do it, so I should know this, but I think it's $425 a month we pay out of our pockets to have recycling. We also have, with the city of Reading, an ability to go and take your recycling materials down by the stadium area, the swimming pool area. There's a parking lot there. There's about 4 or 5 big bins, and you can throw your recycled material into the various bins. So you don't have to pay the $4.25 if you want to take it down there and do it yourself. So what we are bidding, though, is the possibility of getting all people to have the opportunity or be required, if that's the case, to have a bin and to have the recycling. Now, you can't, you know, the old cliche, you can't take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So if they don't want to throw the recycling in the bin, you know, what are we going to do? I mean, we're going to do the best we can. And I'm glad that Mr. Orman's here tonight, because he has a lot of knowledge in the background. And if you don't mind, I'm going to bend over and ask you to help me out tonight. If you would come up and explain to the crowd, because Pat has been, Mr. Orman lives up in Maplewood subdivision, and he has been very active. He and his wife are the two that go out. You'll see them around town. They're picking up trash. And they've started getting other people to participate, which is wonderful. And they go all over the place. Even after the football games, I got a grandson playing this year. They go around and pick up the trash and take it over to the recycling bin. But there are some grant monies out there, and I'm going to turn it over to Pat. And if you'll explain to the people here and if you would, who are watching, what are the possibilities? I know there was some grant money we got, was it 70,000 or something? You go ahead and explain it if you will.
So there are 2 separate issues that are going on right now in regard to the recycling. One of them is, as Mr. Gertz said, you know, the possibility of citywide curbside recycling. It's gonna definitely cost us all a few dollars on the water bill. I assume it would still be added to the water bill. But, you know, we and so many others just believe that this is just a truly responsible thing to do, you know, as consumers in society. All around us, we are a little island of a city that really is not recycling. We got Blue Ash around us. We got Evendale. We got Amberley. You know, we're really, you know, Deer Park. We're surrounded by cities that are doing this, and it's just one of those things that's the right thing to do. And the other issue, and this is a completely separate issue, is that, you know, Reading was selected as the target recycling city with the Hamilton County Solid Waste District, and that is basically a 2-year relationship with with Hamilton County that could come with as much as $70,000. That's kind of the cap. It'll be whatever the city puts forth as a plan. You know, our thoughts right now is that, you know, we have virtually no infrastructure for recycling in the city, no recycling at our parks, well, there's a little bit of recycling at the stadium. You know, we need to get
Mostly
recycling.
You're doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are little recycling.
You and your
bins,
lovely
but,
wife
you know,
here.
it's amazing how little they're used because they're just not real visible. And, you know, I think we just have to get a better understanding of recycling in the city too. But, you know, that relationship with Hamilton County is going to happen regardless of how council chooses to go about the collection of our waste and recycling. So at the least, we're hoping to expand the recycling into our parks, into our stadiums, into our community in general. And then hopefully, you know, God willing, that, you know, we can become the responsible city, responsible citizens that, you know, will recycle, you know, curbside. And I do want to let people know, you know, I've done a lot of research with Rumpke, took the tour of their recycling plant, and one of the things about our, quote, free recycling bins down at Hafey is that they at times can be so incredibly contaminated with just pure garbage that there's a very good chance, as it was explained to me by the representative at Rumpke, that when that truck is dumped, if they look at it and it's just too contaminated, a front loader will literally pick up that load, put it into a dump truck heading for the landfill. So I guess, you know, people that are doing a really good job getting their recycling, I would feel bad that maybe your stuff is not getting recycled, because we really need our bins to be better supervised, maybe in a location, you know, with some cameras and things that can, you know, help us prevent the contamination. And my wife and I, at just the last football game, were dumping our cans. We had to take out bed frames, wooden bed frames, you know, the metal rails that you set your mattress on. I mean, just garbage that there's no way that that bin probably would have been recycled by Rumpke. So, you know, there's a big education program, and that's part of the money that Hamilton County will give us. We'll get literature out. We'll be able to make videos. You know, they will make presentations to council. They'll make presentations to church and school groups. A lot of education will come with this also. And then Reading can really join, you know, the rest of the cities in Hamilton County and the Cincinnati area that are doing the responsible thing. You know, as consumers, we just need to do this. That Rumpke landfill has maybe 30 to 40 years of life in it. We could double that by recycling. That recycling plant's only being used to 40% capacity right now. And someday, maybe not our generation, but future generations, they're gonna have to truck that stuff somewhere else. And then I couldn't even imagine what the price of a city garbage bid is gonna be if Rumpke has to put it up to middle of nowhere, Ohio or Kentucky or Indiana someplace, because their landfill has to be sealed and is full. It's time for us all to do the right thing in this city. And I think it'll be a great benefit to young families that move in here too. They sometimes come here and they go, gee, you don't have recycling? I have to do all this to get recycling? So, you know, especially as we're developing this Nyer property, young families coming in, we like them to stay here and live and work here at the same time.
Thank you. Well, Pat, thanks for all the work you do, and Tracy, thank you as well, and all the rest that do recycling. It is a two-edged sword. I've been out knocking on doors. It's time of the year for that. And I will have to admit, I've come across some residents that basically said, you know, it's a great idea, but I don't want to be forced to pay for it. Well, that's their prerogative, and that's their right. And so if certainly they need to voice their view too, and that's why I'm trying to have this Second Ward Advisory Committee meeting, is the ones I'm talking to primarily, or in my ward. And one lady told me, well, I take it down. I take it down to the recycling site, and I dump it in there, and that way I don't have to pay the $4.25. I said, well, more power to you. Now, the bins are down by the stadium, which is in my ward, and these people are in my ward, so maybe they don't have as far to drive, so they don't have to worry as much. But, you know, some people do that, but by the time you pay to drive down there and pay for your gasoline, it seems to be going up and up and up. You're in a situation where maybe the $4.25 that we're currently paying as a volunteer program isn't that monstrous of a burden to have to deal with. And my goal and my hope is that we will get a very favorable bid, because it would seem logical to me. Now, logic doesn't always work out in society, does it? But if they get all of the recycling for all of the community, it would make logic to me that it would be less expensive than what we're doing on a volunteer basis. And I believe with Pat, maybe you correct me, but we may be able to get the bins through one of these grants or get some help with that. Is that true? Okay, come back up and explain that one to me.
Yeah, so I meant to say this. So there's a very good possibility, and again, with the county's help, that we could be eligible for a grant through, I believe it's called Recycling Partners of America, that will essentially buy the recycling carts for each household in the city. Part of the contract bid for recycling would be essentially rental of those carts, but Reading could buy them or use the money towards the rental of it, thus lowering the recycling rate for the citizens. So, you know, that's a very good possibility to get, but we can't even apply unless council has passed that we will be a recycling city.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up to us as well. And you know, I would just hope that everyone keeps an open mind. I would think that if Rumpke, we've been very fortunate, they've been our best bidders over the last 25, 30 years that they've been servicing us. So we do have competitive bidding. You know, there's other people that bid on this. But if they got all of the recycling business, it would seem to me that, you know, logically that the price, logic doesn't always carry the day, but that we would get a better price. And as Pat has been pointing out, you know, there are options. Maybe the city could contribute towards part of the cost and make it more amenable to people to have the bins and to recycle. But I think we all truly have to have an open mind. And one thing that I will have to mention, was I was of concern, is that if the bids come back and neither of the 1 week or every other week seemed at all attractive, then there was scuttlebutt that we were going to eliminate the volunteer program, which really kind of broke my heart. I mean, people who want to do it and pay for it. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's an added burden on people in administration that do the water billing and do the checking. Some people get aggravated, they don't pick it up every week. I see Bob Ashbrook is here, and sometimes in the alleys, they don't always pick it up like they're supposed to. If you're the only one on the alley, it's even more likely they may skip you here and there. But nevertheless, I'm pleased to say that council unanimously voted. Now that's a resolution, as I explained to Pat. It's a resolution at council that it is our desire that in the event we do not get a attractive recycling offer from any of our bidders who come through by the end of the year, that we will at least maintain the volunteer program. Now, that is not carrying the weight of law at this moment, but it certainly shows an intention of the people who are voting at this time that we want to at least maintain the program that we have in place. And one other thing we do, and maybe we need to be more aggressive, if I understand this, and Pat, you can correct me, or Tracy, he gets all the talk. You know. But anyway, it's my understanding that if we were more aggressive on how much material we actually keep out of the garbage and out of the landfill, I don't know that we adequately cover all of leaf protection and what we do with, you know, taking our tree limbs away and chipping them away and using them for other things, and even, you know, making sure we file for the claims that we can get. I regret to say I think we lost 2 years where we'd have made about $3,000 a year. You know, $6,000 is $6,000. So, you know, we need to remember that we all need to work together. Everyone has a voice. It'll come down the pike here before council. We don't get a great deal of people. Of course, with the COVID, you couldn't come at all, but at least we're able to attend and come to the meetings. So if you're thinking that you want to be more aggressive about your opinion, by all means. Currently, we only meet on the first and the third Tuesdays. We were meeting every Tuesday night except the fifth Tuesdays. But if you come to the meetings, and just as Pat, he's a strong advocate of what he's trying to achieve. If you have a different perspective or viewpoint, I think you have the right to speak your piece as well. So anyway, I don't know if anything else can be added to recycling. I think you covered it, and I really thank you for coming tonight. I was hoping you would, because you know a lot more about this than I do. And Justin, you had a question? You want to step up here? They won't hear you.
Justin Feldman, 1415 Market Street.
This isn't a council meeting, but I'm glad you said it anyway.
I was just going to comment that when I walk my dog, and we do walk down with recycles and put them in the bins, I noticed that they haven't been emptying them since Monday. So you may, it's your ward, you may want to check into that. It may be empty now. I don't know.
I had trouble with my own garbage this week. I had to call. I don't know if they're having some issues with equipment or what, but I'm confident that they're going to get back and take care of it. But you're right. I did just hear that.
And another thing I've wondered about, and I'm sure you wouldn't have an answer right now, but if when the, oh gosh, it's slipped my mind now. That's why I'm not running for anything. But,
Well, have a seat, and if you think I would come back up, we'll let you speak later.
yeah, if I do. It was concerning this. Oh, when they were talking about the recycling and picking it up down there, they said we'd never gotten any credit for all that recycles, that there's 5 dumpsters and a cardboard dumpster.
I don't know that that's completely accurate.
But I thought maybe they were going to another city and they were just writing in it that they came from maybe Gulf Manor, and they got credit for the whole load because they're not filling up there with just those dumpsters.
I don't know the answer to that question. I will ask the question and see where I can get with it, but by all means, we want to get all the credit that we can get for whatever we're doing. And you can, yeah, well, even $3,000 or $4,000 a year, that's not a stick in the eye, is it? I mean, it's some money. So I don't know if we have anything else that we want to talk about with the deal with recycling. I don't know, Mary Lynn, I don't know if you have any question. I don't even know if you're recycling. I don't remember.
Well, it was recycling, but then I saw Bunky take the red bins that we used to get in our.
Oh, years ago, the smaller ones, yeah. If you can't hear her, she's saying that she had a red bin, the smaller ones, not the green ones that are like a cart.
They threw it all in the regular garbage, and so I was very discouraged, and so.
Well, that doesn't help us. You're right. If the man that's handling the collection doesn't, many years ago, oh gosh, there I go, you know, click, click, right, Bob? Many years ago, we had bins on the side of the garbage trucks, and that we were running into that problem. Our own men were just throwing it in the back of the truck, and it was not accomplishing the goal we were trying to achieve. So anyway, if we want to go on, I have another issue, unless somebody else has thought about something else they want to bring up at this point. I am, you know, I never really got anywhere in life, to be frank with you. I moved from 431 Pike Street to 401 Pike Street. I never got off the block in my whole life. So I love the ward, and I stay in this ward, and so you know, it behooves me to worry about what's going to happen on a personal basis, to be frank, in certain areas of our town. And as we're all aware, we have a beautiful new school. People voted to have this accomplished. I don't remember. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was $52 million that was spent approximately to build this school. The city, we get some criticism that the council doesn't work with the school and so forth. Well, maybe they ought to look at the record. The council voted to go in debt for $800,000 for ingress and egress and infrastructure to be able to get in and out of the new facility up there. You know, Bolster Drive, Columbia Avenue, Benson Street, new curbs, gutter, traffic lights, poles. All of that was paid for out of the cities. And they say, well, it's all one big pocket. You know, it's one big pocket. Well, really it isn't, because we don't get any funds to pay for fire and police protection or garbage collection or, you know, street maintenance or any of these other sweeping the streets. And so we are separate entities, although we're all taxpayers and we want to work together. I don't have any problem. And I always try to work with the school system. There's never been a question in my mind about that. But at the same time, what worries me is, and it was required, it's my understanding, I'm not privy to it, and I brought it up at the last caucus meeting, that we should start engaging the school board in what we're going to do about the school property that sits at Jefferson, Bonnell, Hawker, and Mechanic Street, that city block, which sits kind of right in the center of kind of the old part of town here, near Canning Park, and close to the stadium and some of these other areas. And the stadium is another large tract of land that we're having issues with and trying to work with the school. But anyway, I am concerned of what's going to happen to that. Now, you know, everything is scuttlebutt sometimes, and you don't know what's accurate and what's not accurate. That's why I'm suggesting that we have a meeting sooner than later with the school board to at least start having open discussion. You know, somebody was telling me that, again, who knows? I mean, maybe Bob can engender more information on this. They want to put a soccer field in there. Well, I had someone take a look at it and investigate it, and they said, well, it just really wouldn't accommodate a big soccer field, plus there's no parking. So where are you going to put the parking and so forth? So, but my view is it's the citizens need to get involved in this discussion. It's not my idea. It's not, you know, Justin's idea or Pat or Tracy. It's all of us need to get involved in this, even though this, you know, we're told city doesn't own that property. They're absolutely correct. We do not own that property. It's owned by the school board. Other scuttlebutt I heard, I don't know whether these are accurate or not, that if we have too many new homes built, Bob might shed some light on this, that we're going to have to build another school back down there again. And I thought, well, you know, if that's the case, we ought to at least be informed about that. And then, of course, you know, what's the property worth? How much value is there in the community? And back in April, well, that really wasn't that property. It was just, we were discussing what is the value of the stadium. You know, we should just, the mayor's of the opinion, I think, I come to speak for him, that we should just give the stadium to the school. Well, you know, as a member of the city of Reading's government, you say just give this to the school. Well, and then it was said that, you know, this really was owned by the Kiwanis, and the Kiwanis gave it to the school. So back in April of 2020, I put an ordinance on the floor that we have the stadium appraised. I'm in business as an attorney, and I deal with certified appraisers all the time, and Deerdorf's one I use mostly. I said, hire Deerdorf to do a thorough appraisal of it, see what it's worth. Made sense to me. And let's run a title examination. You know, if there's something out there that says, you know, was supposed to be given to the school, then let's live up to our contract and do what we got to do. Well, the reality is it got voted down. I couldn't get anywhere with it. So what I did do, and I hope that you as people in the second ward and those that are not in the second ward might support the idea, I had a title examination run myself. I paid for it. I did this when I was in law school. I used to be a title examiner, believe it or not, some 50 years ago. And a good friend of mine, he did it. He gave me a little discount. But, you know, I've got to pay his way too, so I don't hold that. But there is no record, none, that property was ever owned by the Kiwanis. The only record that exists is that this city bought it from the fireworks company, I forget the correct name, out of New York, in 1948. And subsequently, the property then at the stadium, we had to cut a piece off of it to settle up somebody's personal. There was another piece of land. We had to give them a sliver of land back in 1953. And it cited what I call an executory contract. Now, it's unfortunate things are being put out there that about the history of this is supposed to have been something that would belong to the school, go to the school. Well, the executory contract is, what that is where you and I might sign a contract to buy my house, and ultimately we say, one or the other of us, of course, when you write them, we don't let them get out of them that easily, but that, you know, if I decide not to buy it, then fine. But I have the right to assign it to somebody else. Turn it over to somebody else, have the right to buy it. Well, in March of, I think it was the 16th of 1948, the Kiwanis did have an executory contract, the way I interpret it, to buy the property from the fireworks company. And on March the 25th, 9 days later, or 6 days, 9/6/15, right, 25th, they assigned the contract to the city of Reading, and the city of Reading bought the property. It's never been owned, never entitled to the Kiwanis Club. Now, there's other things being said. There's all kind of expenses that were paid on it. Well, I do know that in 1951 we had a big centennial here. A lot of you are too young to remember any of that. I was only a young fellow myself. But the street was blocked from Columbia Avenue all the way to Voorhees Street. For a week, we had nothing but carnival going on. And it was a big celebration, a huge parade. And they made money. Centennial Committee made money. And they called that Centennial Park for years because they also contributed money towards that facility. Even though the city owned it, because the city was, actually Harry Vedran was the chairman, I think, if I remember, of that Centennial Committee. Well, subsequent to that, in the 60s, we passed an earnings tax here, a 1% earnings tax. And the concrete structure down there, isn't going to blow away, by the way, was paid for and built by the city. You know, it wasn't paid for by any other outside source. It wasn't paid by any donations. It wasn't paid by the school. It wasn't paid by any entrepreneur who was renting it. Now, there was some logic to it back then, more so than today. And I'll be honest about that. You had Sacred Heart School had a football team, and St. Peter and Paul had a football team. The Reading Little Leaguers, they were very active. They played football on it. Actually, at one time, Moeller High School rented the facility for their home games. So it was a facility used on a broader base than really today. Really, the only true tenant is the Reading School. And I do want to, as we say, get out of the business. I'd love to turn it over to the school and be done with it. But at the same time, I'd like to open up a negotiation, a discussion about the school property that sits on the block that I mentioned to you, Jefferson Avenue, Hawker Avenue, Mechanic Street, and Bonnell. Now, you know, somebody in a group of friends, and I think it was Scott Bothy, said, well, let's just do a swap. Well, I don't know what it's worth. Is a swap fair? You know, is that something we should pursue? Well, it's something to talk about, isn't it? Well, again, I try to get an appraisal. I can't get anywhere. So I went and had an appraisal on the school property done myself. I paid for it. And I have the records. Again, I used Deerdorf. And when I got the appraisal and I completed it, now, it's prepared to be used. You know, I'll give credit for that. All the buildings are destroyed and it's leveled. And he came back with $120,000. Well, on the tax duplicate for the stadium, I think it was, what I come up with the other night, Bob, 235 or something like that, if I remember. So you know, I just want to open the negotiations. I'd like people to talk. I'd like to figure out what we're going to do and have some plans in place of what's going to happen with these facilities. I've had, you know, many parents that, like, I don't care about the Centennial Park. When I go up there to watch my grandson play football, I'll tell you that. I enjoy going up there. I have no problem with any of that. And they didn't have any problem on that field winning 5 games out of 6 so far. Should have won the 6th one too. What darn Wyoming got us. But anyway, my point is I want to open it up to anybody here. Do you have feelings about it? What do you think should be done? I want the citizens of my ward especially to get more active. How do you feel about the school property? Does the school have to have the property? I don't know that the facility should this be a park? One lady I talked to said, well, build a new city hall and put it there. It's an idea, isn't it? Of course, I'm not sure. Or, Pat just mentioned, if you couldn't hear him, to put a recreation center there for the community. Well, now Justin's shaking his head no, so but, well, all my point is here tonight, yeah. Well, I'll throw out my idea because I always got something I got to click, right? They tell me I should get a clicker. That makes me quit talking, right, Bob? So who else wants to jump in here? You're ready to go. You can say what you want. So go ahead. But I would like to see some new housing put in there. I checked with my appraiser. And because I don't know if you've been, I'm sure you have, Montgomery, or if you drive through Madeira, I call them land dominiums. They're built right next to each other. They're all different, but they're built one next to each other. There are people in this town years ago that had a 4-bedroom house. The kids are all gone, and they don't want to leave Reading. They don't want a 4-bedroom house anymore. You think about that housing, if there were some, and I checked with my appraiser, if you could put 15 to 18 houses in there, and I did suggest to him about the parking. I said, what if you had parking behind the, you would face, the houses would all face Bonnell in Jefferson, and you'd have a private drive that would run from Mechanic to Hawker, and they could have their garages and all that back there. But you'd lose 2 housing, so it'd be about 16 to 17 houses could be built in there. Now, you know, what would they be worth? I said, how much are they going to cost? He said, I think you'd get 200 to 225,000 for those. Well, that certainly would make my property a little more valuable. It'd make Justin's property a little more valuable. He lives about 2 blocks, 3 blocks away from it. Plus, it would bring in, you know, additional revenue for people living there. As was pointed out, Pat's saying, made comment about recycling. Young families would come in. I don't know whether they would, you know, how the families we live in today. I think if you have 2 children, that's a lot anymore, you know. Of course, my parents are old Catholic family. I'm the youngest of 10, so it's a different era. So how do you people feel about this? What do you think about what we should do? And how do the people who are watching think about this? I'd like to know. I'd like to know where we're going. What are the ideas? You know, how do we deal with the stadium? I didn't get an appraisal on that because I just ponied up enough money to do the appraisal on the school, so I wasn't ready to pony up that money again for the stadium. But I thought Mrs. Wernery, who's on the school board, was rather candid. I think it was Susan Slavey. I do watch the Facebook. I'm not very good at it, I'll be frank, but made the comment that then the school really want it or can they support it? And her definitive answer was no. So that is an expense, you know, to have to take care of that facility. So how do we work this out? We got to open up our communications. We got to be able to talk with each other. And, you know, everybody has a different idea. Community center, you know, city hall, ball field, but you got to figure out whether it'll work or it won't work. Now, they're also, you know, they say, well, you can't do anything with the stadium's grounds because they need a new turf field, and they did a study, and they're talking $3 or $4 million, but they're talking about tearing everything down. If they take it over, they do whatever they want with it, as far as I'm concerned, as long as they don't go say, well, we need a great big tax levy again, you know. But the thing of it is, Pat, I understand you're pretty familiar with what happened in Deer Park on the whole thing with the turf field over there. Is that true or not?
I mean, I've got some basic knowledge. You know, I can give you some
But get back up here. Get back up here. I need to know. You got a lot of data. I don't know. Where'd you used to teach at Deer Park, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was a 5th, 6th grade teacher at Amity Elementary in Deer Park for 24 or something.
That's where my grandson goes.
But yeah, I talked to Jay Phillips really just today, as a matter of fact. He's a superintendent in Deer Park, so he gave us some scuttlebutt, on what they did. Now their stadium was in pretty good shape. It didn't need a complete rehab or anything, but the turf field that they put in, along with any remodeling with that turf field, was $800,000. The Bengals gave them $250,000.
I think that's the max that they'll
That's
give.
the max, but you do have to have the property owned by a school district. The Bengals and the NFL will not give it to a city-owned facility, so we couldn't get that in our current state. The school's going to have to take it over somehow, some way to get that money. They had a private citizen who gave them $100,000 toward that. They had $270,000 given by Mercy Health, which is being paid over a 10-year period. So the school board did advance some money, and Mercy Health is essentially paying them back over a 10-year period. But through just private fundraising, Deer Park also raised $500,000 just completely on their own. Now, as a teacher, every spring we had an annual kids walkathon, and every kid from kindergarten through high school was given an envelope. They went home, they got pledges, they collected money, and all that money went toward stadium renovation and the turf field. So that went on. Gosh, I probably walked in 15 of those. Sponsored Tom Griswold, rest in peace, was a fantastic board member, former principal at Amity Elementary, organized all that. But they raised just hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. Of course, Bill Cunningham is a famous Deer Park graduate, and he
He wasn't as good as he
Oh
claims he
boy, I
was.
tell you, he's something else. He's lore in Deer Park, but you know, his donations, his, you know, speaking it over the radio got us a lot of money. He had, you know, private golf events and things that, you know, some of the Deer Park bigwigs went out and did golf outings. Luke Kuechly, NFL player for the Carolina Panthers, just I think recently retired. He's from Deer Park, and you know there was significant monies there, and you know he had private signings and whatnot at the Montgomery Inn. So, you know, they raised well over $1 million, you know, between the private and really not to my knowledge, not an actual dime of taxpayer money went into all that. So, you know, Reading Schools gets hold of that property. I think, you know, Deer Park can do it. We're the same kind of community. Reading can certainly do it. You know, it would be something to certainly look at, and I'm sure the Bengals would be there. And heck, maybe we can even get Bill Cunningham to do a little Deer Park Reading rivalry and help us get some
That would
money.
be interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah, I know Bill pretty well. I said I comment. I don't think he was as good as he claims it is on the radio. He's the character. He's the that I always enjoy talking whenever we cross paths. But anyway, my point is, you know, it's the impression I get though is that, you know, the school should have it, and then they would be able to go out and it would always be paid for by the Bengals. Well, it's my understanding the Bengals will not pay for all of it. They only
You had to have matching funds.
yeah. Then they have.
Donated $250, but you had to have matching funds.
I was told too, you had to have it in place that it will be maintained for 5 years. You had the money put aside for that. Is that correct?
And that was why they overraised in Deer Park.
Yeah.
So they have a fund.
So, you know, I think there are people in the community who are familiar with how to, they tried this a few years back, and, you know, there should be some Reading graduates out there that hopefully would have the wherewithal to pony up the money, you know, and I would love to see that happen. And now, you know, I was, we can work together too. I mean, yeah, does the stadium have its issues, the property? Well, it's also a storage place for vehicles. I mean, not vehicles all the time, but they have equipment and stuff in there for grass cutting. And there's, yeah, there's some needs for some tender loving care. I'm not a person that's knowledgeable in that field, but I did walk through it and go through it. It's not deplorable. My gosh, maybe I'm talking out of turn. Bob, did you want to comment on any of this? No? Well, I went to Roger Bacon, and I played basketball at Villa Madonna College. It's now Thomas More University, but I had a full ride. I had going through the lines. It was kind of nice. But we had no fan. We had nothing. We played our games at Covington Catholic High School. We didn't have our own gym at that time. And we practiced at St. Ben's up in 17th Street in Covington, and it was a grade school gym. So, you know, it didn't inhibit our ability to play basketball. We went all over the state of Kentucky, played at KIAC, and had some good years and some bad years. And but the interesting thing, we always had to shoot foul shots. You know, you had to shoot 100 foul shots and make 80% of them. So you'd shoot them in 25 increments. You had to make 20 out of 25. If you didn't make 20, you made 19, you had to start over and do it again. And you didn't want to be the last one into the shower room, mainly because there was no hot water. So, you know, sometimes we got to be a little careful about, we have to have the most glamorous facilities all the time. So anyway, I do want to talk about the school and property. I'd like to get that door opened. I wish I had greater participation from residents. I think the facts about it have to be made more accurately. I see things out there that are not accurate. You know, it's when the city passed the earnings tax, as I mentioned back in the 60s, I can't remember the number. I don't remember it exactly, but I know they spent several hundred thousands of dollars to build the facility, you know. So whether it needs total demolition, that's up to the school if they acquire the property, whatever arrangements we can make. So I don't know if anybody has any other comments or would like to participate in that discussion, or if you could, anybody else out there wants to, who are watching or have ideas, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you about them, because it's in Ward 2, which I think is the best and most glamorous and greatest ward in the whole city, in my opinion. Now, Pat and Tracy may not agree because they live up in Maplewood, you know. Yeah, well, we did all the streetscape improvements back in the '83 and made the environment for us to have the bridal district, and you know, I don't have to ride to church. I'm 2 blocks away. So it's kind of convenient for me. I like it the way it is, but at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize any values of people's property by letting something slip through the cracks that might cause us to be concerned about our valuations and our properties in our ward. So I don't know if there's any other issues you want to talk about with the stadium or the school. I don't know whether I've gone off too far and probably got myself in trouble, but that's not unusual, is it, Pat? Yeah. So anyway, the last thing that well, I guess still got a few minutes here. I told you I'd keep it to no more than an hour. I am very concerned about our building code situation and our property valuation, how we evaluate our properties and how we're dealing with them. Now, you know, we're led to believe that council's doing nothing. I think we're led to believe that, but that isn't accurate. We're more than happy to sit down. Bob Ashrock's here tonight. He started, what, 5 years ago to try to start that was your committee, try to get something off the ground. I'm not beating up on the building commissioner. It's a part-time position, but I was a magistrate in Laughlin for many years and attended seminars that I had to go to maintain my right to hear cases. And I recall years ago I was at seminars where they developed what's called the department, and I don't remember the county. I got to dig this out. We don't have it in Hamilton County that I know, and I don't think we have it here. I know we don't have it here in the city already, but which we have a tax court in the city already, and I got that started back when I was treasurer, by the way. But a building department court, the way it's designed is you can act more rapidly in getting properties either condemned, and once they're condemned, get them demolished. And we're lacking in our capacity to move rapidly in getting these things done. I was told, shouldn't be saying this publicly, you could get by with not cutting your grass probably 3 times a summer if you really didn't want to cut it. Because by the time they go through all the steps, the grass has to be certain height, Rick Martin has to send them a certified letter, then they got to do another step in the process. Ultimately, they cite them to mayor's court, and then they go to mayor's court, and before they get there, they cut their grass. So, to me, I was even talking to Danny Albrecht. He's not going to run this year. I wish he was running, but our parents and your parents, many of them, you didn't need a street sweeper. You didn't have to have a street sweeper. When you cut your grass, you swept your own curbs and gutters and cleaned it up and threw it away. Now we live in a different era and we have the equipment. I'm not knocking that, but you'd think people would have more respect in taking care of cleaning up what they have to clean up is their own property, you would think, which is discouraging, you know. Even down on Harms Avenue, I went down there 2 or 3 times and I got frustrated. There's a property down there should be condemned. Just talked to somebody today. It's some way or other tied up in an estate. It must be just paying the current taxes on it, so they can't get a tax lien. I got so frustrated, I just paid it, cut my grass. I said, I can't stand driving down the street anymore. And it's frustrating, you know? And so we shouldn't have to do that as individuals. We got to have a better plan, and we got to put it in place, and we got to be effective, and we got to get it done. I don't know if any of you experienced any of that in your neighborhoods. I know you have a little bit of an issue on the people are dealing with rights, but civil cases. But how do people feel about it? Have you run very often when you're out walking all, you know?
Not really, not that I've noticed. I just walk.
Well, you know, there are at least 3 properties that I'm very aggravated about. One is a burnt out house on a certain street. Nothing's been done with it. Another one is the one I mentioned that's in this estate, and it had grass that was 4 feet high. Again, I got frustrated with it and had it cut myself. And the other is generally in my neighborhood, and this is rather peculiar. If you get a building permit, you got up to a year to do the work. So you can have all the debris all over the place in your backyard and all that. This, to me, is not amenable to having a good neighborhood. So my goal is to try to do that. I would hope that if people have those same feelings, we need to work on it together and try to get that accomplished. And I guess that's the main things I have tonight that I wanted to cover, other than Justin's very unhappy and I'm not happy. We did lose the court case to stop the huge gas line, which made no sense to me. And to be frank with you, everybody, whether it was administration, to their credit, the council, all of us fought to try to stop that. What smelled about the whole thing, though, Justin, is you probably think the same way I do. They went ahead and built it because there was no restrainer on against them pending the outcome of the case. So would you spend all that millions of dollars not knowing you might know what the outcome might be? It does smell a little bit, doesn't it, Justin? So it's frustrating sometimes. So we're getting close. I won't even be an hour tonight if you guys want. Anything else somebody wants to bring up about the, yeah, thank you, Pat.
This is just something I literally came across tonight, and I have no idea. Is Riesenberg Lane in your ward? Or
Yes.
That is. So I spent a little time at Sabrina's house tonight. And
You've got a nice place.
it's a very nice house. But I guess I am stunned by the amount of truck traffic
No
going
kidding.
down that street. And I'm sitting there, and you know, we're having a really good We Thrive meeting.
By the way, I compliment your We Thrive. Boy, you
It's
guys are doing
that
a
is
wonderful
one
job.
cohesive, energetic organization. I mean, God bless Donna Wiggins and Sabrina, and I guess somebody even started it before those two were on it. But I think it's not going to be a question of if, but when one of those VYO kids is hit by a truck. There was soccer going on down there. I know they're playing baseball. I'm thinking back to my kids growing up in the 90s. There was never truck traffic like that. And I guess that lane maybe that road didn't even go all the way through in the 90s. Can't vaguely remember
Not to
what
the
it
extent
looks
that
like.
it is now.
But that truck traffic, big 18-wheelers, big double dump trucks, I mean, all kinds of stuff going down that road. And like I said, it's not a question of if, it's when. And there's got to be a better way to route those trucks. And I'm not familiar with that particular neighborhood in that area and how those trucks would get back there, but there's got to be another way. You can't have those kids in that field and people parking on both sides of the road and, you know, watching the games. Those trucks have got to be routed differently.
Well, 2 years ago, I'm not a hypocrite. My grandson was playing the ball down there, and I'm agreeing with you. I saw this happening, and I did prepare an ordinance, Pat, to eliminate that truck traffic. And they're actually in the plans when that was expanded. There was a number of axles that could use it. It was not paid attention to. And we were there that night, and ironically, the night I put an ordinance on the floor to restrict the traffic from, I can't remember now, I think it was 4 in the afternoon till 9 at night or something. And I got a tie vote, and I couldn't get I don't even think that we even had a person try to break the tie. He abstained, if I remember, which didn't make sense. But anyway, I tried. So there's an answer, and I have to bow to Ashbrox here tonight. Years ago, he talked about having a route. Now I went Nair, by the way, people should know, the Nair company working with the Port Authority for us. They bought the property. It was old PNC chemical company back there, and it's quite a few acres. I've been complaining about that being an attractive nuisance too, and I haven't gotten anywhere. But anyway, I would like to see a road constructed from Reading Road where they put the new bridge in on Reading Road. at the Cooper Creek, that influent into the Mill Creek. Somewhere in that vicinity, build a road from there going east and west, and build a new bridge, an additional bridge, a new bridge. There is a bridge there. It's for accommodating the drum company, and they don't use it now that we have Riesenberg Lane. By the way, we ponied up $300,000 for that too, out of community development block grant money, and we're paying it back at $50,000 a year. So it was a loan. It wasn't a grant, I should say. It was no interest is what it was. But I would like to see us construct a road, and I put this into my proposals of what I want to see accomplished, from Reading Roads east and west through the new, because I was not happy. I wasn't going to voice much because I want to see NIR complete this project. You know, it's a lot of jobs and a lot of money. It's $500,000 of earnings tax money we could foresee in the next 3 to 4 years when they build all of this and incrementally go through it. But they're talking about having the main entrance to go in and out of that facility to be Riesenberg Lane, which I'm not happy about. That's not just the truck traffic. That'd be all the traffic going in and out of the new facility. I would prefer to see us explore working to get a road built from Reading Road all the way across over to the road that runs. My name escapes me. What's the name of the street? Barrett Avenue. It's that they built a new street back in there, and to get there, and even Bob brought up putting an overpass all the way across to Shepherd, so we could quit worrying about whether we got a way to get around the trains instead of going all the way up to Glendale Milford Road or all the way down to Galbraith. So I think these can be accomplished. You know, I've fought for these things in the past. We can do this as a community and get it achieved. But you are absolutely correct. I tried to get that done in council, and I got voted down on that one too. I don't know, man. Some days I don't know whether I just go ahead and beat my head against the wall a little bit. But I agree totally with you. Matter of fact, the night it was coming up for a vote, I was passing out my ordinance, and a lot of people came up to the meeting, and we were there when the truck went right through the stop sign at Bernard Avenue in Riesenberg, plowed right through the stop sign, big old tractor trailer and everything. So, you know, they don't want to slow down at that one stop sign.
Most of those drivers can't read English. They're imported in. They stay here for 3 months, then a new group comes in, and it's just a constant turnover.
I don't know who that group is. It's a little disconcerting to see that too, Justin. But it's on the top of my list, and you're right. It's in my ward, and actually the VYO property belongs to the Reading. Did you know that? It belongs to the city. It was donated by the Cabot Company to us years ago when they acquired the Darling Company property. And a good friend of mine, Paul Rice, was the attorney for them. And of course, it was a donation, so they got a bit of a tax write-off too. It paid for it. But that all belongs to the city of Reading, all that BYO property. And, you know, I think that we could pursue that. And to Bob's credits here, we did build a bench for those that are, I never heard of a bench before for flooding. And it was about a $400,000 project we got a grant for, wasn't it, I think, Bob? So how it works is instead of flooding the people down the street, it floods the fallow land that's all adjacent to the creek there. So we're working in the right direction. It's just you got to have the foresight to say we're going to do this and not back down. But I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, Sabrina's a good example. She's a brand new house on Riesenberg Lane, and that's going to be flooded with traffic going through there all the time. It really is not a good solution. But we want to see NIR develop the property too. But I think you can work together to get that accomplished. Anybody else have anything tonight they want to bring up? Thank you, Pat, for reminding me of that. I forgot that. All right. Anybody wants to get a hold of me any way, shape, or form? I never got off the block in all the years I've lived here, so you ought to be able to find me at 401 Pike Street. All right. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for coming tonight. You have a good evening. 7:30.